FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's 1/6/20. Welcome back from the New Year's celebration. We had been taken off some time. This is the first time since I started the podcast that I actually took off a couple of weeks. I did a few interviews here and there and a little bit of work, but really just cleared my head, and it's been amazing. I feel so much better. The metals markets are really cooperating today. You know, we were up to almost $1,580 the ounce. It's settled back, which is to be expected. We're looking at a price right now of $1,564, which is way past resistance, which was $1,550. So we're on to the new leg. Silver was way up, was up 40 cents, but all of this got knocked down because there's no reason to panic. There's just chaos in the Middle East, and that's what we've come to expect. Well, where are we heading for this coming year? Is this the start of the Q4, Q1 seasonal rally for precious metals, or is it just a blip because of external factors? You know my opinion. Well, let's find out what John Rubino's thinking. Hey, as always, email us kl@kerrylutz.com. You find John Rubino over at dollarcollapse.com. John, so this is what we've been waiting for, huh?
Hey, Kerry. So you go away for 2 weeks and World War III breaks out. I think that tells us something. You need to just sit there and work.
Okay. I won't do it again. Don't worry.
We'll together. All right. Anyhow, this is killing me, though. I got to say. These things happen at night. Crazy things happen in the evening, and stock futures do this and gold and silver do that, and it makes it look like the opening is going to be in the next morning is going to be this absolutely crazy thing. And so I try to go to sleep, but I wake up during the night and pick my phone up to see if that's really still happening. And staring at a bright light like a phone screen in the middle of the night tells your body it's time to wake up. And so I don't get nearly enough sleep on cycles like this, where last night we're bombing Iran and they're threatening us, and gold is way up and stocks are way down. And then usually after nights like that, the market opens kind of calmly, and it turns out to be no big deal at all. I didn't have to be up 3 times last night looking at the gold price or anything, because today's market is basically pretty calm, no big deal. And so this is really a frustrating thing about the world. I don't know what to do about it. I need more sleep.
Yeah, well, you can't let it get to you. I sleep soundly every night. Yeah,
well, that would be the ideal. Just ignore the world, no matter how much money you're making during the night. Actually, there's an old classic stock market book called Super Money, and in it, the writer has an indicator. He calls it the aspirin bottle indicator. And to predict market tops, because when your stocks are going way up, you got to wake up in the middle of the night and check them, right, on foreign markets. Yeah. And then your spouse says, "Honey, why are you up?" And then you grab the aspirin bottle and shake it and say, "Oh, just have a headache. I'm just taking some aspirin." And then then you go back to bed. And so the more that happens during the night, the closer to the peak the stock market is. In other words, the blow off top is when everybody's up in the middle of the night shaking the aspirin bottle. And so that kind of happens to me, and I really wish it didn't, because now I'm going to be sleepy all day long for no reason, because this is a pretty decent day. Gold and silver are up, but the mining stocks are down, which I think is more of an interesting story right now than what gold is doing. Mining stocks have opened the year down hard, even though gold was up, and so that's a little bit worrying, but it also can be explained possibly by the fact that gold stocks did really well last year. And because of that, people didn't take a lot of losses to the end of last year. But now that having to pay taxes on your stock trades is way in the future, it's another 15 months or so, people are taking their gains in a lot of stocks that were up last year. And that's a very temporary thing. People spend a week booking their gains to go against the losses that they might have to take later in the year. And then normal trading will resume, where precious metals mining stocks kind of trade along with precious metals, but a little bit more extremely. I'm looking forward to that too, because the last couple of days of trading should have been spectacular for gold mining stocks if they just traded along with the metals. But instead, they've been way down. So it'll be nice to get back to normal trading after this whole year-end, beginning of the year stuff is out of the way.
Yeah, well, so where we're heading, though, this whole thing with Iran taking this guy out, is it a big nothing, or is something going to come of it? I mean, I'm tending to think it's greatly overblown by the media, and, it could be the final nail in the coffin of the theocratic regime of Iran, because that guy was the enforcer. He was keeping everybody in line, killing off the protesters when necessary, and just really authoritarian. And now he's gone. It's kind of hard to replace that type of person.
Well, the idea that the U.S. knows what it's doing in the Middle East has been disproven so many times before that, they clearly, the guys running U.S. foreign policy don't have the slightest idea who they should be friends with, who they should be enemies with, why they're over there, why we have 50 military bases sprinkled around the Middle East. If we took the military budget that's devoted to ensuring the free flow of oil, and through that at solar and wind and batteries and stuff like that, we wouldn't need oil. So this is a really bad deal for us. Now, add to that the fact that nuclear weapons are getting easier and easier to make. And we can delay the inevitability of lots of other countries having nukes, but we can't prevent them in the end. Lots of people are going to have nuclear weapons. And we really don't know where Iran is right now. We know Israel has nuclear weapons in the Middle East. We know Iran has radioactive material that can be made into dirty bombs. We don't know what Iraq has. We don't know what Saudi Arabia has necessarily. So the Middle East is a time bomb. And to the extent that we're still dependent on oil, it's really easy to envision a scenario where somebody sets off a dirty bomb in Saudi Arabia's oil production facilities, or somebody else sinks a tanker in the Straits of Hormuz and blocks oil tanker traffic for a really long time, and oil goes to $150 or $200 a barrel. And the vastly over-leveraged global financial system can't handle that. So that could be the flashpoint for the next Great Depression very easily. And we're right there now. We're shooting at each other and dropping bombs on each other's generals and invading each other's embassies and stuff. So it's very possible that history will look back at this week and say, oh, okay, that's when it really started. And you got to hope not, because we're all about the precious metals investment thesis on this show most of the time when you and I talk. And you really don't need World War III for precious metals to end up being really good things to hold, because we're making all the financial mistakes that we have to make to ensure a monetary reset in which gold and silver go up. All that stuff is going to happen without tens of thousands of people being killed and, huge amounts of land being irradiated for the next 10,000 years. We don't need all that stuff for the investment thesis to work out. And that makes this doubly scary because it's unnecessary. It adds a huge element of uncertainty to what's going on in the world. And people suffer, and so this is not a good thing. And I don't know. It's hard for me to look at this and think, well, once we get the governments in that region straightened out, so they all agree with us about stuff, then the world will be a safer, better place. And then, history says that's a pipe dream. So I'm looking at this as not having any real upside. There's nothing good that is going to come from us getting into a war with Iran, and many, many bad things can come from it. So, yeah, I don't know. I know that's a minority view, it seems like now.
I don't think we're going to get there. Honestly, when I look at this guy, I said, why was he still alive? Why didn't they kill that guy 10, 15 years ago? They knew He was major enemy of the U.S., and he should have been terminated with extreme prejudice. I don't think it's going to matter in the long run because I think the die's been cast. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. But this guy, if anyone needed killing, it was this guy, and the world's a better place without him, although not as much as we would hope.
Well, the other side of that argument is that when you take out somebody like that, you create a lot of wannabes. You enrage enough people that new, maybe even more aggressive leaders will take his place. The idea that he was some kind of evil genius who is the only one in the world who could do what he did may not turn out to be true. There are probably other guys who could step into his shoes, who have a mandate now to do really extreme things. So, it's conceivable that this is the end, and now we make friends and stuff over there because we went to the brink and everybody doesn't want to step over that line and we all pull back. That would be awesome. But it's also conceivable that everybody steps over the line and then we see what happens. And yeah, I don't know. Great for gold and silver when there is turmoil in the world, but not great for our soldiers and for the people living in these cities that will be bombed back to the Stone Age or irradiated or whatever. So.
Yeah, agreed for sure. There's no question. There's definitely some negatives here, and I don't think it's a net positive or a net negative, but at least that guy is gone. It's kind of like, when they execute an inmate, and really, does it have that much deterrent value? Does it really show society's serious about eliminating and stopping these people? No, but at least that person will never commit another crime once they've been executed. And I think that's the way you got to look at it here. Yeah, somebody will step into his shoes, but there is a learning curve, I guess. I don't know. I don't think they have schools for terrorist masterminds yet, but maybe they do over there. And he probably had his PhD, and he was probably advanced graduate studies in terrorism and terror attacks. But yeah, in the long run, it's going to be a lot more than that. And this is just the first chapter, I guess, right?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Osino Resources is a Ross Beatty-backed gold exploration company in mining-friendly Namibia. Osino's district-scale land package is situated near two producing gold mines, one of which Osino's management team previously developed and sold to B2 Gold. Osino's founders and management are experienced mining professionals who have already successfully developed and sold two companies in the past 7 years. Osino has an excellent shareholder base with Ross Beatty owning 20%, insiders 5%, and Resource Capital Funds 8%. This is an exploration company with drills turning that you'll definitely want to pay attention to. Osino trades in New York under the ticker OSIIF and in Toronto under the ticker OSI. To learn more, go to osinoresources.com. That's osinoresources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Yeah, well, the whole fiat currency / dollar collapse thesis is that financial mismanagement leads to political turmoil and leads to serious geopolitical conflict. So we should expect to see civil unrest all over the world as more and more cultures go bankrupt, and flat out war as countries that are blowing it financially try to distract from their own mismanagement by picking fights with enemies overseas in order to unify their people. That's the normal dynamic. So in that sense, as we take on more and more debt, the rising levels of civil unrest and conflict in the world should be expected because they're part of the script. So yeah, in that sense, this is just beginning, because we're actually, in a lot of ways, still in pretty good economic times. Most people are working now, and there's headline number growth out there in most countries, and inflation is, according to the official statistics, well behaved. So to most people, this seems like fairly normal times. And in the next recession, that's when everything is laid bare. When we all find out actually how how much we were screwing up in the past, and we were hiding it with extremely easy money. And then it becomes extremely hard to hide, and more people get angry because their own lives are affected, and they see the truth out there, and that disillusions them. So you would think that with all the debt that we're taking on, that the 2020s would be a decade of civil unrest and just general turmoil. And, it's definitely shaping up that way.
Yeah.
This is not good. The only thing that we're left with, because you can't stop this, there's nothing an individual can do with their feet or their pocketbook or their vote to stop what's coming, because the institutional momentum is just so baked in the cake now. We are heading off that cliff. So the only thing that's left for us to do is try to arrange our own finances and our own lives in ways, as Chris Martenson and Adam Taggart stress over at Peak Prosperity, is resilience is what you've got to be cultivating now. And not just financial resilience, so that's a big part of it, but across the board. Your life has got to be structured going forward in a way that allows you to roll with the punches. You don't want to be fragile in a world like this. So, which is to say, you don't want to owe too much money or any money, really. You want multiple income streams, if possible, so that if one blows up on you, there are a couple of others to take up the slack. You want to be connected to your local community. In other words, you want friends you can depend on. And in order for that to be the case, you got to be available to be depended on by other people. So you've got to enmesh yourself in your community so that when something happens to you, as it inevitably will in this world, there are people there to help you out. And, they have a lot more on their list of things that you've got to do. But that's really the attitude to have, which, by the way, is just common sense for normal life. You should always be doing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But now more than ever, it's a necessary thing. You've got to be taking steps to be resilient in the face of unexpected and problematic change, because that's what borrowing way too much money and then picking fights abroad gets you. That's where we're headed, I think. It would be a miracle if we didn't head that way, based on all the numbers, at least.
I'm inclined to agree with you there, John. There's so much uncertainty, and there's just so much profligacy and debt, and the instability that we see with all these governments, populism kind of sweeping the globe. We see Brexit. Nobody's even thinking about Brexit now, John. What's going to be the upshot of Brexit? It's coming the end of this month.
Nobody knows. Nobody ever knew. It might be okay. Britain is a really brilliant, vibrant culture, which means they can probably make it on their own without being part of the European Union. So it's possible that they do just fine. If they have some relatively free trade deals with other big entities out there in the world, and they keep on being creative, they might end up just fine. We just don't know. I think Europe is more problematic. The continental Europe is more problematic than Britain, because they've got a lot of different problems bubbling up in a lot of different countries. And the coming decade is liable to see a situation where financial problems at the weaker countries in the Eurozone force the European Central Bank to aggressively devalue the euro in order to keep all these guys together. Because the only way you can have Italy and Germany in the same monetary system is if it's a really inflationary, highly liquid monetary system. That's a problem for Germany, but maybe they stay with it because they benefit in some ways from that. And that's the only way that Italy can stay there with Germany. So you could see the euro become a really weak currency relative to the other currencies, and definitely relative to free stuff. And that kind of monetary turmoil puts a lot of stress on a society. And when you've got a society that's not fully integrated yet and has other countries, a bunch of different countries with a bunch of different languages, you can see more Brexits, in other words, only on the part of continental European countries, some of them who have a lot of debt denominated in euros today. And if they decide to try to pull out of the Eurozone, that's a source of huge turmoil. So that's Europe's issue. But the rest of the world, every big country in the world right now has its own financial issues. Japan and China, we could do a whole show just on Japan's problems or China's problems.
Oh, God, yeah, for sure. Well, looking at it, looking at what's happening here when we view each country, there's a bunch of countries that would like to pull out of the EU now. Hungary is not happy there. Poland is really unhappy. And you just have to wonder how much longer the EU is really going to hold together, because they're kind of like, the other thing I wanted to raise was they're kind of like the coalition of the Democratic Party, a bunch of, crybabies that have no real common underpinning, no real common values other than they hate the establishment, although they are now the establishment. And speaking of that, according to the latest poll, Bloomberg is at number 3. Nanny Bloomberg. I mean, the guy have a shot at this?
Well, that's Bloomberg's strategy, is to throw several hundred millions of dollars at running ads to get himself up to viability. And then at the convention, when Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren end up splitting the vote, so none of them can get the nomination, then he slides in and says, "Okay, look, I'm sort of the second choice of a lot of people out there, and we can coalesce around me, whereas we can't around you." And he becomes the nominee in that way. That's the strategy, and it's a long shot strategy. But when you got $300 million to throw at ads, you can raise your name recognition at least, and then it becomes a question of how well he does in speeches, and if he gets into any debates, how well he does and stuff. But that's the strategy, and it's probably as good as anybody else's right now, because the Democratic Party is split. We've talked about this, so we don't need to go into it again here. But there's a really deep fissure now between the moderates and the incrementalists on one hand, and the avowed socialists and the bomb throwers on the other side. And neither group is going to enthusiastically support the other's candidate. So it could be that Bloomberg, or who's the other guy? Deval Patrick, right? He's African-American, successful governor, also a lot of money to throw around. So, he's a factor there too. So it could be a ticket, a Bloomberg Deval Patrick ticket, where we just, just toss all the guys who are now on the debate stage and everything off to the side and take these two. You just don't.
Oh, that'll cause a fracture like you can't believe. But no, I totally agree with you there. Who the heck knows? But I think there's a shadowy hand involved that is pushing all these people to split up the the delegates, so that nobody can go into the convention with a clear majority, thereby causing the real person to come out from behind the curtain, the wizard, who's really been pulling the cords. And whether that's Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton, or my own personal belief, it's going to be a Midwestern or Pennsylvania governor who actually comes out to grab the nomination. But none of these people who are currently running have a chance. Bernie Sanders, he just doesn't have a chance. None of them do. And they're all just being manipulated by the elites, by the people really running the party. But that's my theory. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Iran, what they're going to do to try to exact retribution and revenge. My guess is it's going to fall very short. I just don't think they have it now. I think they're in disarray at losing that. It's like a company losing their CEO. There's a period of time where they just can't react. They're kind of hopeless. I think that's what's going to happen with Iran. Anyways, go take a look at John's site, dollarcollapse.com, our site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for both our newsletters. John, we will catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Kerry. See you next week.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.